my dear viewers and my dear learners. I hope you're all learning different concepts in the English language. By now, you would have understood that English is not so complicated. So, we've seen so far so many integral concepts in the English language. As a part of that particular concept or that particular world, you have seen yesterday the importance and the usage and the use or the benefits of using prepositions. So part of that, I would like to add one more concept to this grammatical world or like grammatical concepts where the English language is very much is in need of all these concepts, I should say, because many students or many learners they ask me, Madam, if we eliminate any one of the topics, can't we do with meaningful communication? But what I would say is they will indeed add nice flavors to the language you are using. It. That's all. Yes, you can definitely convey your message, but then meaningfully and easily understood, or it's like to be able to comprehend. So that is those are the things that are also essential in addition to conveying your target message. So now you're with me to come and see how these adjectives can be used, and before that, how you can understand them. Learning adjectives for meaningful communication. Sudeepthi Dondapati, working as an associate professor from the Institute of Aeronautical Engineering. Now, many times you see that using adjectives is not very comfortable because good, bad, beautiful, all this can be understood, all this can be used without any problem. But then, like if you have to use some complicated adjectives, and these adjectives wear some different shapes also, sometimes appearances. So they put up some different appearances so that you won't be able to identify them. In such cases, understanding and using those adjectives will be definitely a challenging and daunting task for some of you. So, but then, before you can really play with using adjectives, I want you to understand the concepts and the basics of adjectives, understanding the adjectives in your own sense. So, like, how can one really be comfortable in using that? Until and unless he understands. So, for me, in my own sense, it is very much different, and for you in your own sense it is different. So but then, like, what are some fundamental, basic, general, nominated and accepted norms and rules understanding adjectives? So now let's start our talk. So then, word, adjective. An adjective and one word is there, right? A word and then an adjective. Both can be interlinked so beautifully if you know how to use them. So now basically these adjectives or any adjective will try to modify anything beautiful, something like which is very worse or bad. It will try to show its problem, or if something which is very beautiful, it will try to show its beauty. So it modifies and then comes up with an impression. So by now you would have understood what I really meant. What I mean is adjectives or an adjective will define some concept. So could be a noun, could be a pronoun, anything. It qualifies, it modifies, it talks about, it renames, it tries to give an impression about it, or then it attributes a quality. So anything, any feature that I've mentioned is possible with adjectives. So if I have to define an adjective or adjectives, I can say like this. An adjective defines, qualifies, or modifies the meaning of any noun. All these parts of speech, right? Noun, pronoun, adjectives, adverbs, prepositions, conjunctions, interjections. So all these are different parts of the English language. And if you take away them, or if you pick them out of the context, you won't be able to convey your sense, my dear learners. So never underestimate the role of adjectives in your speech or in your conversation, right? So what does it do? It does defining. It does modifying. It modifies. So modification is possible. And definition, it defines a quality. For example, I see a beautiful rose, right? So I've already used an adjective here. Instead of saying just naming out a noun, I would say, oh, it's a beautiful rose. So instead of saying it's a rose, oh, I see a red colored rose. So even then I am using adjectives. So if I use any color, if I use any adjective, beautiful or any words, or very bad or sweet smelling or bad smelling, whatever it is. So I am involuntarily or unconsciously using adjectives in my speech or in my speaking. So it is very much interrelated. It is very much involuntary. It is very much it exists within this, the sentences or your language without any invitation. So adjective doesn't come only when you invite. It comes very naturally whenever you have anything to talk or anything to speak about any particular person or place or any thing or any kind of description for that matter. So you go to any temple or you go to any place. So you go to any beautiful place, any tourist place. You go to any church, any mosque or any place. You can describe the art of it. So how do you describe? You need adjectives. So what role does it play? It plays a very important role. It will talk about the feelings of anything. Take anything for that issue. It talks about feelings. It talks about qualities. It talks about emotions. It talks about its nature. It talks about its character. It talks about its personality. Whatsoever you bring in, adjective must be used there. And so, yes, you can use very plain language English, plain English, but then if you add these adjectives, definitely it will add a beautiful sense to your speech. So it defines, qualifies and modifies noun. A noun, it could be anything: name, place, thing, fruit, any flower, anything, or more rarely of a pronoun. So, and very rarely this it will modify pronoun. It expresses a quality or attribute of the word it qualifies. So it talks about the attribute. It talks about the quality of something. So that is very important. Right. Now, there are two main categories of adjectives. So when we define, till now, we defined adjective is this. But in the second position, what I say is, I would like to classify adjectives or categorize adjectives. So how we can categorize or classify or put under different divisions based on its function, based on its implementation, based on its nature. So now come with me to this categorization. Right. So now you have to put it under two main categories. The adjectives which you are using can be categorized under two main groups. One is determining adjectives and the other one is descriptive adjectives. Determining adjectives and descriptive adjectives. So determining adjectives, what are they? And descriptive adjectives, what are they? Which can be either qualifying adjectives or classifying adjectives, right? Now we will see everything in detail. So now what are these qualifying adjectives? So either they can be determining adjectives, can also be called or can be considered as qualifying, and then the descriptive adjectives or classifying adjectives. Right now, what are these determining adjectives. Or what is a determining adjective? They're also called limiting, okay, limiting adjectives. They are nothing but they are classified under one family, right? So there is a limited number of adjectives here. So now what are they? They are possessive adjectives. So under determining adjectives, we are looking at different types. Like under determining adjectives, we see possessive adjectives, right? Possessive adjectives and then demonstrative adjectives, interrogative adjectives. What are these possessive adjectives? Possessive adjectives are nothing but, you talk about, yourself possessing, right? Like my book, their house, okay, hers, it's hers, it's mine, right? Something that is related to which you possess. So these are nothing but possessive adjectives. And then like another is like under which these things, that is like numerals or quantifiers come under determining adjectives. So how these numerals and quantifiers come under determining adjectives? They are numbered 1, 2, 3, or every, many, much, less, this much. See, these you are quantifying them. Basically, what you're trying to measure them in terms of quantity. So what do you say? Everyone, many roses. So you are quantifying them. So they will be considered. They will be part of determining adjectives. And second thing is like interrogative adjectives, and the other one is demonstrative adjectives. So what do these? How do these demonstrative adjectives can be understood? Demonstrative adjectives can be understood when they talk. This is the book. That is the book. Okay, so these are understood in these senses. So they will demonstrate, they will try to represent, they try to talk about the concept, right? Such as this or that. These are all, can these, those. Okay, so these are all can be categorized under these demonstrative adjectives. Next, what is the other category left out? It's nothing but interrogative adjectives. So possessive, demonstrative, and interrogative. So in or under interrogative adjectives, they're like why, which, when. So you can bring all these under. So the interrogate, a kind of interrogation is happening under this row, right? So these can be, or these are understood as interrogative adjectives. Next, now till now we talked about determining adjectives. Now let me bring these descriptive adjectives to your notice, right? So now under these descriptive adjectives, there are like different points or aspects to discuss. So they are nothing but qualificative or qualifying. So they describe, descriptive. That means what is the main aspect we need to observe? We need to observe, they describe, they qualify anything that you bring, that anything that you look into, right? They qualify whether it is this or not. Like it is so big, we say. So we qualify in terms of size. Nice rose, nice book, nice writing. So you are qualifying it in terms of its description. Complicated, oh, it's so complicated. You are qualifying it in terms of its nature, difficulty level. So but that is why these are called qualificative or qualifying adjectives. Under what? Descriptive adjectives, right? So we've seen under descriptive adjectives, qualifying, and the second one is classifying adjectives. So now we are going to discuss this classifying adjectives. So classifying adjectives, they include absolute adjectives. So am I confusing with too many terms? My dear learners, always people say that you shouldn't be able to, or you shouldn't be taught these terms or this traditional or structural grammatical terminology when you learn. But what I would say, yes, you can understand in your own terms. in your own communicative way. You know how these adjectives can be used. You know how these can be used. But then you should also understand its terms. Why? Because you have to know the terms and can understand the concepts by its names. When you know that it will be a classifying adjective, that means you can understand the role of that adjective is classifying any object or any matter that you are looking into. So for that reason, you have to understand these qualifying adjectives or classifying adjectives are there to show its nature, their nature, right? So, classifying adjectives talks about completely absolute adjectives. So that means they are absolutes. So you don't see a kind of movement or change or any temporal uh, mm, aspect or situation. Why? For example, married, right? So if you have to consider or classify a person who is married, you either consider that person as married or unmarried. You don't say marrying person or will be married person. You don't do that. Of course, the person will be getting married, but then you have only two categories: married and unmarried. So, see, marital status, unmarried person. See, these things are absolutes. That is the point I'm trying to convey. And then you can think that it is once something is very unique, you say that is the only one and one, and you don't see any change or any change of kind of like situation, right? So that is why you have to understand this is not possible. What is not possible? Changing and movement. So that, and also another best example I can give you is somebody who's dead, right? You cannot it's like you cannot qualify that person saying more dead or less dead. Once that person is dead, he's dead. You don't say he's getting dead. You don't say he's less dead or half dead, more dead. You don't use all such words. That is why it is absolute. Now you would have understood the aspect or the point that I'm trying to bring to your knowledge. So they will classify into different sects or under different categories. Something which is unique, something which is absolute, something which is permanent, something which is already done. So these are called classifying adjectives. The above one, the previous one, which we've discussed, is all about qualifying something. So what do they qualify? In terms of nature, in terms of sizes, in terms of shades, color, and so on. Beautiful picture, I say. It qualifies. So it's qualifying them. So I say a small pen or it's a small notebook. When I say you're qualifying its size by nature, by size, right? In terms of you're qualifying its size or its physical appearance. So that's the point I'm trying to bring. Next, some more points to add on to qualifying adjectives. We've seen, right? Big, less, beautiful. So, how can you use these qualifying adjectives in different senses? At the most, what you do is you will qualify them. How do you qualify them? You will grade them. What is this grading? Grading is nothing but you say it is very, very beautiful. Oh, it's not so beautiful, right? It's quite good. It's not enough. Somewhat enough. So you are qualifying into its degree. So what you're doing there is you are grading it. What you're doing there is like you are grading it. So that these qualifying adjectives are what? Gradable. That means you can grade them into different categories or even into different scales, right? That those are, and then again, what you do is by the addition. How do you grade them? By the use of these adverbs, right? So that means like such as very, very, quite often, enough, food, right? You talk, you bring nouns, you add these adverbs to kind of adjectives or nouns or any sort of other parts of speech. And also you can qualify them in terms of its degree. So what is a degree? This like kind of like very comparative degree, positive degree, and most superlative. Good, better, best. Good, better, best. So in comparison, you always say, oh, it's better than that. And in the superlative sense, that is it is the best. That means there is no other superlative than that. So it is the best. It's a unique thing. That's ultimate thing. That is the point you are trying to say. You have to remember. So that is why these are qualified under different degrees. That and you have to understand the function and role of the adjectives in terms of their degree. Big, bigger, biggest. See, you can grade them in different degrees. Big, bigger, biggest, like that. Next. Now, let us come back to classifying. We here we're switching on, to this thing, like both classifying and qualifying. So we will now look at this classifying adjectives now. They cannot be, if qualifying adjectives are gradable, classifying adjectives are not gradable. Why? I've already gave a clue sometime back. Like I uttered a word, like you don't say more dead or less dead. Once somebody is dead, he is dead. You don't say more dead or less dead. So for either if a person is married, he's married or unmarried. You don't say like more married or less married. That is the sense of this classifying, the point I'm trying to say. So these are called classifying adjectives. So they can be used as qualifying adjectives sometimes. So adjectives can be used in different ways, like either qualifying adjectives, classifying adjectives, depending upon what? Depending upon the context, right? Now, for instance, let me tell you one thing. Take the example of the adjective old, O-L-D, old, right? Now, you can use this adjective old in different senses, in different contexts. Now, I'll give you some examples so that you will be able to comprehend very effectively. Now, first one, my car is very old. My car is very old. What are you doing here? This adjective is a qualifying adjective. Why? It is talking about its nature, like whether it is new one or old one. So it is qualifying adjective there. Right. So what is it qualifying? It is qualifying a noun there. So my car. So when I say my car is a noun, and here this qualifying adjective is used along with a noun. Right? Now, second sentence. He's old. He's old. He is a pronoun. Here this old, it's talking about the nature or qualifying aspect. So this qualifying aspect is used along with a pronoun. So qualifying adjectives is used with a pronoun. Next, the old computer was much quieter than the new one. Old, here you're classifying. How are you classifying? Old one, new one. Present one, old ones. Okay, past. So present, past. Okay, recent ones, the old used. So you're classifying here under different senses or different kind of like nature, a different use according to its durability or according to its functionality or according to its nature or time period. So you are classifying them, right? In the first two examples, old is a what? Old. My car is very old. That means you perceive its quality. So that is like perceived quality. That is why it is gradable. So he is very old and not very old. It's a new one. My car is a new one. It's very old, not so old. You can grade them, right? But in the third sense, in the first two sense, you can grade them. He's old. or he's not very old. You can grade them by using these adverbs, very old or not very old, much more, less. You can use all these things when you are qualifying, using qualifying adjectives. But when you are using classifying adjectives, you always think about absolutes. Absolutes are nothing but either previous, you classify them, either this or that, put them in categories, old ones, recent ones, right? Former or previous. Former are previous. See, the old computer was much quieter than the new one. So you categorized under old or former or previous. That is why it is classifying adjective. Next, now you can use adjectives as attributive adjectives or predicative adjectives. Why? Why do you have to use these adjectives as attributive and predicative? Now, come on, learners. You can understand the terms and then apply the sense of it in your language. So, you try to understand. This is a great tip. You can take it. You understand the term and then you can apply that in your sense. So, if you don't understand the term itself, you won't be able to know what they are. For example, they are attributive, for example, adjectives when I say. If you know the meaning of this attribution or attribute or attributive, then you can understand that these will talk about the qualities. When you know this predicative, the meaning of the term, you can understand like they talk about some action, right? Now, here, some examples. The big metal box. My dear old grandfather. You're not only talking about box, you're saying that size, attribute the size or how it is, and then you're talking about this metal. Okay? The big metal box. My dear old grandfather. You're not only just saying old grandfather, you're also saying, my dear old grandfather. A very modern plastic dish. You're not only saying it's just a dish, but also saying that it's a very modern plastic one. An easily recognizable face. You're not only saying that just a face, you're using an adjective where you can say attributive adjective, recognizable face, something which is very familiar. And next, a pink and green dress. A pink and green dress. That means you are talking about again the quality or the attribute, how it is, feature. Not too infrequent event. So this is all about again attributive adjective. Now let's think about predicative adjectives. All these examples, let me take you back to the previous slide. See, the big metal box, the ones which are underlined in red color. Dear old, modern plastic, recognizable, pink and green, too infrequent. These are all attributes. What is the function of the attributes, adjectives here? They are talking about the qualities of that particular. It is talking about the quality of the box in the first sentence. Next, in the second sentence, it is talking about whether it is old or new. Old or just young person. Right? And whether it is a plastic one, a modern plastic dish, or a metallic dish. So you are able to understand the attributes, the qualities. And once again, remember that attributes means qualities or features. Okay, so that is why these are considered as attributive adjectives. Now let's move on to predicative adjectives. What are these predicative adjectives? Predicative adjectives are used as the complement of the verb. Okay, they will use a complement. Some object should be there, right, to the verb. Like similar verbs such as like get, become, grow. So let me give you an example or a more few examples for the point I'm trying to say. Now, predicative. So the result was magnificent. The result was magnificent. Here you are talking about such as like it will be used as complement of the verb here. So you are not only talking about the result is something, you are talking how it is. The mother is beautiful. You are not only talking about your mother, you're talking how she is. You're talking about mother, how she is. The weather is getting cold. You're not only saying the weather is okay or normal, or the weather is normal, but you are trying to say it as it is getting. See, means that action, predicatives are they are all about verbs. So these verbs are like this, like they will become, grow, something, movement, changeable, and they will be changed into different categories or different situations. So it is getting cold. Okay, so here it is talking about the verb at the same time, and it is showing also the condition or the action of a verb. Okay, I grew fonder of London after living there for a month, right? Like she started or I started liking it. So that means something which is, which will show the upgrading action, or some kind of action that is taking place. So that is why these are called predicative adjectives. Now let's talk about these adjectives in a plural sense. Till now we have understood different categories of adjectives, but now we can understand adjectives as plurals, how they can be understood as plurals. We talk about the poor, right? We talk about the poor or the living or wounded. When we say, oh, the poor is like that, oh, the living is all there, the wounded, that means you are representing all the poor people there. All the living, not only one, but all the living people. That means like the all human people who are alive. That means you are not segregating or you are not separating one person from the other. What you're doing is like you are saying it belongs. That means you're representing the entire. It is representing the entire thing, right? So that is the sense. Next, that means you cannot say the poors, you cannot say the livings, you cannot say the woundeds. It's grammatically wrong. So you can use that to represent the poor, all the poor people. I mean, like whoever are your target people there. So all poor people, or all the poor in the present context, you can say. So that is how these adjectives can be used in plural tense, but not by adding s with regard to the examples are given, like poor, living, On the other hand, in the same way, no, not in the same way, but on the other hand, that means in a different way. Now, what are they? There are some adjectives where you can exceptionally use this plural s, where some adjectives used as a nouns, they do take a plural s. Some nouns. So what are they? So let me give you an example. The final is between the reds and the blues. So maybe you're talking about any match. So you're talking about, you gave some name to the groups in any sport. So you can name them as reds or blues. So in that sense, you can use the plural s. Next, now, so far we understood how we can categorize now adjectives. But now let me give you an example, or let me give you some information about how these adjectives are formed. This is the very important aspect here of all the concept, or from all whatever we are talking. So this is very important. What is that? It is like we need to understand how these are formed. These adjectives are basically lexical words. So lexical, general words could be noun, pronoun, or any meaningful chunks, or word which will have the kind of inflections, general vocabulary words, right? So these words, lexical words, are either can exist independently, or they are dependent, right? So, for example, let me give you example. So these adjectives can be independent or they can be dependent. So some are independent. What are those independent adjectives? These independent adjectives are like good, bad. That means they are not taking any inflections. Morphemes are not there. Like good, gooder, goodest. You don't see how these words exist in in the English language. Bad or baddest. You don't say that. So, but these are independently alive or independently surviving. That is why these are called independent adjectives. Whereas some other adjectives are inflected forms. So these are the methods or these are some ways how these adjectives are formed. This is the best way for you to understand. Right? So these adjectives are inflected forms like, for example, charm is there, right? Charm is general adjective. So you bring ing here, inflection. So charming. So one word, charming personalities. Next, fond, right? And you add in another inflection. You add all these suffixes and prefixes. See, fondness. These are how adjectives can be formed. So they can be formed from nouns, for example, beautiful, beautiful, or motionless, motionless. Beauty, you add ful, that inflection or suffix. So it becomes beautiful. Motion, motionless. Or even from other adjectives, right? So LOH. So you add any sort of suffixes like ISH, FUL, LES. So all these words can be formed. Take a glance at it. Take a look at it. See, unthinkable, able suffixes are doable, mendable, possible, plausible, able, able, or able. Right? So careless. So with all suffixes, ls. All suffixes beautiful, full, foggy, stormy, ish, smallish, greenish, darkish, beautiful, helpful, wonderful, awful, blissful. See, all these can be formed. So distinguished, bore, contented, square, challenging, alarming, amazing, exciting. So all these are formed. So you add ing to nouns and you can form different adjectives, right? So now we will understand how these adjectives can be compared. If you are thinking these adjectives can't be compared, then you are mistaken. So definitely these can be compared. How? In terms of degrees again. Either positive or comparative or degree. More, most, more, most. See, these can be compared. With the most common short monosyllabic adjectives, some words, adjectives, for example, comparatives can be used. Right, like for example, some words ending. How these comparatives are used? Or est. Superlative takes est, in comparison take er. So for these adjectives, for example, like some words like they are, you can't say good, better, bad, worse as comparatives or superlatives. These can't be compared and categorized into superlative because these are irregular, comparative, and superlative forms. Now I'll show you then what are the words, adjectives that can be compared. See now, careful. You can compare more careful, most careful. She's more careful than her. She's the most careful person. See, you can compare by using more, er or est. In superlative also, you can say est. You can take a look at certain, hard, black, old, all this. See, these are other examples. Big, bigger, biggest, hard, harder, warm, warmer, quiet, quieter, quietest, clever, cleverer, cleverest, all this. Pretty, prettier. See, you can compare them. Heavier, heavy, heavier, heaviest. So all these can be formed. Now, how can adjectives are modified by adverbs? So now we will see how these adjectives can be modified by adverbs. For example, I'm quite certain I left my hat in the car. So here, quite acts as an adverb. So now, certain is modified by this adverb. quiet. Right? In the second sentence is a good film, you can say, but you want to say a rather good film, or this is a rather a good film. So you are modifying the used adjectives by using adverbs. It's very clear that you have read the book already. You can say it's clear. So it is modified by this adverb. This is a highly complicated situation today. Right? You are modifying that particular thing. Next, the situation is highly complicated. Okay, that was clear enough. You're modifying the adjectives by the use of adverbs. Clear enough. Is the door wide enough? Much better. They are newly married. You can say married couple, but instead you want to say they are newly married ones. He made a carefully worded statement. So all these can be used. Some adjectives that will help you understand better, right? So some words questions we can deal so that you'll be able to understand. So when you say you should be very careful, right? You should be very careful. Snowing board is a hobby. You should be very careful. Snowing board is a hobby. So one is boring, dangerous, awful. You should be very careful. Snowing board is a hobby in the sense like you have to choose a carefully one and pick up one adjective. So it must be very dangerous. It's not related to awful or awesome, or it's not related to interest or boring, but it is related to that you should be careful that when somebody is questioning, then that must be a dangerous one. So you have to make sure that you pick up these adjectives in context. She is dash than Caroline. So you're comparing, you're using comparative adjective. Like she's shorter. In comparison, you bring the other person. So you use er, and in superlative you use est. So that is why it is er, shorter than Caroline. I think she's beautiful girl in our school, or beauty, or the most beautiful. When you are comparing in our school, that means of all I'm trying to say, so you have to pick and choose the superlative, the most beautiful girl. I think that BMW is a car, but my brother thinks that Audi is better. You're comparing here, so you use this comparison form. Mary speaks German, fluently or fluent. So you say generally she speaks fluent English, but you don't say fluently English. We all think his behavior is abnormal or antinormal or abnormal. So you have to make sure that these are very good. You say abnormal. Right? I would like you to buy this flat. It's because larger than someone. You're comparing again. So you will pick and choose the word large. Right? So all these can be used, and these are the words you can take take them very seriously, and also these are very interesting. These are not so complicated. If you understand the concept of adjectives, definitely you will be able to master them, and you can enrich your language so beautifully if you have all these adjectives in your presentation or in your conversation. Thank you.
Like, share and subscribe. Hit the bell icon for more updates.